All right, thank you. So awesome we have an Ed Petty in our church. And is anybody else in here named Ed? Because pretty much around here you can just say Ed and you know it's him. So love him and his whole family. Uh, and I don't know if it's been announced, but we have Jonathan that's on staff, but then Colette's going to start teaching Grief Share, and we are so excited about that. So we love the Petty family and all that they're doing. Well, I think we're going to cue the music, the walk-up music again, because Andrew Habachik's going to come up and sing. He's trying to get me because Dr. Biles is gone. So, and that's the thing about him. I can't ever tell when he's teasing or not. So I'm still learning on him. I think the rule is 99% of the time he's teasing. Well, let's remember to pray for our pastor, Dr. Biles. He is at the International Mission Board meeting. And that is our mission sending agency, which sends missionaries around the world. And of course, you know this, that Dr. Biles has a great heart for missions. And many of you may not know the story, but when he was a student at Howard Payne, he was the Howard Payne Bible student of the decade and all kinds of stuff. He won everything down there, but he went on a mission trip. And they sent him to a place where they did not speak English. And they put him in a house where they only spoke Spanish. And as only he learned to speak Spanish while he was standing. That's how he learned, what Spanish he knows. He's gifted linguist. So we would study together in seminary every Saturday at the Tandy Center. And he would tutor me in languages, and I would tutor him in video games after we were done. So he's the smart one. I've always hung around with him. But remember to pray for him this week. Also, too, his dad is coming in this weekend, and he will be here Sunday. We're actually taking him to play golf on Friday. Tom Biles. And Tom Biles was once the director of missions for Minnesota, Wisconsin. So if you hear Darren talking funny, that's because he grew up there with all the cheeseheads. And so he probably likes the Green Bay Packers and Minnesota Vikings, all that kind of stuff. And then Tom went to be the executive director of the Tampa Baptist Association in Tampa Bay. I'll tell you this about your pastor. He has phenomenal parents. Tom Biles, amazing preacher. Darren's mother is incredible. It's no wonder that he turned out the way that he did. He's a good egg, but he has really good parents. So if you get a chance to meet his parents, they'll be here this week. So I do have an announcement to make about Israel. I do have an itinerary, Johnette. We do have some more stuff. Now, he's gone and gave it to me to make the announcement. The Israel dates have changed by 2 days. So we're leaving 2 days later, but it's going to help the price of the trip. So instead of leaving on a Wednesday, we're going to leave back on the next Wednesday. Now we're leaving on Wednesday, and we're going to get back the next Friday. So the new dates are April 17th through 26th. And so I have seen everything. It's about to go on our church website. They've got it all done, and it has itinerary, and it has all the different stuff. And part of it, too, because they had to change the 2 dates, they actually upgraded. It's 3 buffet meals a day. Everything's included. You don't even have to pay tips. So if you just show up at the airport with no money, you're still good. You're going to make it. You'll get back home, too. So we'll have more information about that. We do have an informational meeting with none other than Dr. Gary June the 4th. Some of you have been asking about wills, and we have that ready to go. It's going to go in the new website. But in case we had an emergency this week where someone needed to do their will. Let me tell you where you can do your will. Churchwill.com. And so you can go to churchwill.com and it will walk you through everything. It's basically the same link that's going to be on Sunnyvale's website. And also, too, since I've talked to you, we now have not only free will for you on there, but also a free living will. So you can get power of attorney. You can also get advanced medical directives. Everything in the living will is right there as well. And what's interesting about it is and to be able to do this, you have to have an email. So, and once you do that, you'll be able to print your will out, and it'll ask you if you would like to do a living will when you're done. It takes the average person about 20 minutes to do a will. If you do the living will, it's even faster because it remembers you from doing the will. And let's say you do a will and you print it out and you forget to execute it and you remember 2 months later but you lost it, you can just go back in and sign in under your email, print your will out, go down and get it witnessed and notarized and have all that. So, and if you ever have any questions, you can always come and have an appointment with me. So Mara takes care of all my appointments. You can just call up to the church, and usually we have those at 4 o'clock on Wednesdays. So anytime you want to get on my schedule, or if you just want to come and just hang out with me, you can do that too. So churchwills.com. Well, if you have a Bible tonight, I want you to turn with me to 2 Timothy. Our pastor is in the middle of a teaching series on the life of Timothy. And so we're going to pick up on that. So turn to 2 Timothy. And I want to start with the question. Have you ever had anybody as a prank scare you? Like just jump out of nowhere and scare you? Well, did you think it was funny? Yeah. So my kids got into this, that, I started coming home and they would hide in closets and they would hide in strange places and, even the refrigerator, that's creepy. Yeah, I mean, they did, and they would jump out and scare me. Just, the first few times, it's kind of cute. But then, it's like, hey, they're going through a phase. But then it stopped being funny, and I was like, hey, now y'all need to quit doing that. And they just weren't getting the message, and they just kept doing it until, I'm telling you, I think one of the times my heart stopped. I'm just like, I was like, and then we had to sit everybody down. This is not safe for Dad. Y'all need to stop. This is not funny. Because, why is it not funny? Because the one thing that's required to scare people is fear. And that's what I want to talk to you about today in 2 Timothy. Turn to the first chapter. We're going to look at verses 6 and 7. So I'll ask a question. You don't have to answer. I'll make a confession when I ask the question. Was anybody in this room scared of the dark when you were a kid? Okay, we got some people here who, okay, so that was me. I'm just going to tell you right now, there's a lot of things I wasn't scared of, but I mean, dark, I was definitely a fraidy cat. It was an issue, and so I'd be laying in my bed at night, and all of a sudden I would hear that creak. And my mom had been in my room hundreds of times over the same thing, but I was like, no, this one was different. Somebody stepped, and that's when you hear it, and you might have been kind of like close to fall asleep. That's all of a sudden, you're awake, man. You are alert. And our house was dark, but I would just scan. I would just scan back and forth trying to figure out where the noise came from. And inevitably, because I just knew there was something or someone there, either a monster or a burglar. I wasn't sure which. But I knew, just those sounds don't come out of nowhere. And that's when I would see something move. And that's when I would let out my tried and true method that always worked, the scream. Mama! I'm just telling you, it worked. So my mom would come out of the other part of the house, man. She would come up there and she would turn the light on, and I would try to say, man, they must have just left because they were just here. And, And I was like, she goes, where were they moving? Right there. She goes, that's just your shirt that you didn't put in the dirty clothes that you put on the chair. I don't think so. I think he had a shirt on just like that one. But what's interesting is that we did this a lot. I mean, we went through it a lot. And I was talking to Andrew today about my brother. He's 13 months younger than me. He looks exactly like me, but he has blonde hair. It's kind of scary. People thought we were twins, and I always felt sorry. He was not afraid of the dark, and he would get woken up by the scream and all that. I didn't really care. But anyway, but here's the thing: when the lights came on, the fear would go away. And a lot of times, man, I'd be too afraid to just get up and turn that light on because I'd be so afraid something was going to get me. And so that's when I'd scream, and Mom would turn the in. And I want to take up right here, and I want to elaborate a little bit more about fear, because I think I'm probably not the only one that struggles with fear sometimes. The Bible says, "For God has not given us a spirit of fear, but of power and of love and a sound mind." Now, isn't that interesting? That the Bible refers to a spirit of fear. Fear is an interesting thing. When you really get afraid, stuff starts happening to you, even physically. Your palms become sweaty. Something happens in your stomach. You ever got real scared and all of a sudden you were hungry before that, and all of a sudden now you're not hungry anymore? I mean, something happens. You can get a lump in your throat. Your blood pressure can rise and your courage drops. You ever heard the saying, that person got cold feet? Well, that's a real thing. I mean, when you get fear, blood flow in your extremities can be hindered so much so that you actually begin to get cold feet. It's more than just a saying. I mean, and if the fear shock is enough, you can faint. Well, something else. Did you know fear, just by itself, can be fatal? You ever heard this saying? I was scared to death. Well, no, you weren't, because you're still here. But you actually can get scared to death. That is a true thing. That is actually a medical thing. I mean, you can have heart failure from fear. Do any of you remember the earthquake in LA in 1994? I remember it. That was, it was quite the thing. But according to a cardiologist, Robert Kloner, he said over 100 people literally died of fright during that event. His research has shown that excessive fear can cause the brain to release a potent number of chemicals that causes the heart to contract and never relax again, causing death. So over 100 people died just from fear in this. Another study was done in Cleveland, which examined 15 victims who died even though their wounds weren't bad enough to be fatal. Now, what was interesting about this fatality study is that out of the 15 that died from wounds that weren't enough to be fatal, 11 of the 15 had torn fibers and lesions in their heart just from the fear. And so that damage was caused by what some scientists call mortal fear. One of the most famous quotes in presidential history was Franklin Delano Roosevelt. And you remember what he said? Anybody remember it? Yeah, I knew Andrew would know it. We have nothing to fear but fear itself. Yeah. Now the problem with this statement, it's not true. I mean, it's just not. It's just, as long as there are spiders, rattlesnakes, murderers, terrorists, criminals, senior adult ministers walking around with lizards, and then posting a picture of me with the cold-blooded lizard on Facebook. Jason Brooks, and he's watching online. Yeah. I mean, Jason, if I'm just going to speak to you. I love you in the Lord. But if you keep feeding that old fat lizard, he's going to get big and he's going to eat you. I mean, I'm going to tell you right now. But there's certain things that we need to be fear of. If you're not scared of snakes, something wrong with you. And so, this week, we had a deal where one of my kids found a hole in our backyard. And they said that there was a snake down there, and he's looking up the hole. And so I was like, well, man, I need to find Bugman, Drew Rawls. And so I found Drew up here at church Sunday, and I said, hey, man, what do I need to do? And he goes, I don't know. I kill bugs, not snakes. You're on your own. And so that was really helpful. Thank Drew for his helpful advice to me when you see him. And I said, well, I'm going to pour gas down in that thing. So anyway, we're huddling, me and my two sons. My two sons, they produce my podcast, Ed, Defending the Faith. And so we go out there. So Becky realizes something's going on. She comes out, what's going on? It's like, well, if you really there's a snake right there in that hole. And, we're sticking a golf club in it. And so anyway, we walk off. We're going to pour some gas in there and set it on fire, all kinds of. Well, in the meantime, Becky fixes the hole, and we can't find it now. And now we got no way of killing that snake. You should tell her about it when you see her on Sunday. And let me ask you for a prayer request for tomorrow. I am in court in Smith County in Tyler, Texas, if anybody here is from the Piney Woods in East Texas. But I have a church